Welcome to Speaking of Influence. We are going live, we are broadcasting live, and I am joined today by an incredible guest. Her name is Lori Baker-Schena. She is a Dr. Lori Baker-Schena, Schena even. Schena like henna, I was told before we started. We're going to be chatting very shortly. Let's see if I've got some titles to run back to here. That would be good, wouldn't it? So as we get things started, this is all a new setup for me, so I'm still figuring things out, but it's all looking good. Everything is going out as it's supposed to be. So I'm feeling pretty happy about that. And let's see if I can actually get into the stream itself. So I can see you on there. Lori, can you say hello?
Hi, good morning, or actually probably good evening to you, but good morning from out here in Los Angeles.
Excellent. For some reason it looks like the stream's on mute. So let's see what's going on there. This is a bit weird. So bear with us, audience, whilst I try and figure this out. Let me go back to my dashboard, enter the live studio. And hopefully this has us in it. Nope. Let's try this one. Okay, this is weird. The whole event has disappeared. But we are broadcasting, so it's kind of strange, right? Bear with me, Lori.
No worries. As long as you continue to communicate, that's perfect.
Yeah, this is all about communication, and here am I, sort of trying to do technical things and communicate at the same time. And
Absolutely.
that's never the best. I'm the worst multitasker. I don't know about you, but multitasking is a mystery to me, and I
It's a
don't really
myth.
understand how people.
Actually, it's a myth. We don't multitask. Your brain will flip from one thing to another, but it can't do two things at once. And that's really important when you're communicating, because you think you can be listening and writing a report, like you're listening in a meeting and then writing a report, but really you're not doing either of them well. And that is a huge myth. I don't like to use that word multitasking anymore. You can do different tasks quickly, but we can't multitask.
Okay, so Laurie, I can't figure out this studio setting at all. So let's just let's just start the show, which means no title sequence, nothing like that. It's just going to be us having the chat. So let's get into it. Now we connected through one of those wonderful networks that connects amazing guests with podcast hosts. And I was very interested to speak to you because a lot of what you do is about communication. In fact, your background is in leadership psychology, like organizational leadership. Yes.
Yes, not psychology as much as leadership, like deep leadership in organizations. And there's, of course, a lot of emotional intelligence in there. I leave the psychology to therapists, and I always tell my clients, get a therapist. I'm not a therapist, but I can help you get unstuck. But you might have bigger problems than what I can help you with. But the whole idea of my doctorate in organizational leadership is to look at both organizations and people to help elevate everyone to be a better company and better leaders. And I've really enjoyed that journey because the need for this, Johnny, is so huge out there.
I would agree with that, and my whole show is really about communication in one level or another, and so it's from that perspective, it's important to talk to somebody like you who understands about how to elevate your communication. What do we really mean by that when we're talking about elevation? Then, in terms of your communication.
Well, communicating is so very, very important. And many of us have never really learned how to communicate well, because when we speak, we just speak, and we don't necessarily think about how our message is being received. So it's really important to remember who your audience is, who you're speaking with, so that you can be heard. The other end of that is being an active listener. All of us are notoriously not good active listeners. In
Yeah.
fact, when I give speeches, someday I'll be in person again, but I always ask my audiences, how many of you are active listeners? And literally I'll be speaking to hundreds of people and 2 people will raise their hands, because that's a lost art. But without being able to actively listen and be with somebody while they're speaking to you, as well as being mindful of what you're saying, your communication can really suffer, and some of your goals that you want to do, or the leadership, that the motivation you'd like to be as a leader, does not come through. So communication is vital. And I'm so glad you have this podcast. And I think your guests are very lucky to have you, because this is a
Oh, thank you.
crucial area that every single leader I know needs.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. And there are certainly a handful, probably more than a handful of podcasts and shows about public speaking and presentation skills. I think one of the things that perhaps makes mine a bit more unique is that we do probably touch more on the psychology of it and more broadly into presentation skills, but tools of influence and persuasion, and particularly relevant to people using from various platforms, both online video, audio, and live in-person events as well, that it is just as important. And there are some differences between those, but being able to understand those tools of influence and persuasion as well is a critical part of that as well. And I think that's one of the things that guests who come on my show really get. So I don't know if there are other podcasts talking about this. I haven't come across them. Let me know if you know that there are, because
There are a
I
couple
would
out
love
there.
to connect. Yeah,
But,
yeah,
but,
we
but,
might have a
but,
double
but,
act to a collaboration to go into. But I agree that this is such an important area, so much so that there are lots of people selling services and products and courses and the likes about exactly this area, because it's so needed.
absolutely. And, it's interesting that some people take communications classes in college, but we don't actively, once you get into the workplace, there's never any real training how to communicate, nor is there a real lot of training on how to be a leader, which is how I got into this to begin with, leadership training. I had a doctorate in organizational leadership, and I have a background in marketing. So it's kind of a lovely, lovely pairing. And I was a professor for 25 years at a university setting in communications and public relations. And I found that when you have somebody in your organization and they get promoted, it's usually promotion based on how well they do. Like, there's a good person doing that. Let's make them a supervisor, or let's make
Yeah.
her a supervisor. And then they get to be a supervisor and no one's taught them how to lead a team, how to manage conflict, how to communicate and motivate. And all of a sudden you've got miserable managers and miserable employees because no one taught them those skills. You just can't learn by osmosis. So that's my kind of niche, is I'd like to get into companies or even individually and help people really hone their leadership skills. But also that, and Johnny, why I'm saying that is part of the equation is the communication.
Right. Yeah, to be sure. I mean, the communication is the key thing here. I've had clients come to me before now with exactly the issues you're talking about, that they get promoted up through the ranks of their company, and generally, as you show that you can do more, people give you better things to do, better roles to do, but they don't necessarily prepare you. People, especially in big corporations, tend to just put someone in a position, figure, oh, you'll figure it out. I did, but often not realizing that maybe they didn't, or perhaps not as well as they thought. That some of the things I've heard from clients before are that the people at the top of the company who've worked their way to those positions are not great at communicating with their teams, and are not great at interpersonal communication, and have a very us and them division between leadership and the people working at the lower levels of the company, which it doesn't feel very holistic, really, does it?
It really isn't. And we've all been in those team meetings where someone always talks over someone else, and or they talk forever. And being able to lead a meeting where you can control all that is really a gift, as opposed to having people walk all over you. As well as
Yeah.
conflict management, when you have people in your teams or in your company that are at odds with each other, how to manage that. And again, and Johnny, that's all communication. Conflict management is like pure communication. So there's a need there. So I like to see that. I love that fact you have your podcast out here, and how to speak with each other and to other people.
One of the things that has helped me a lot has been undoubtedly getting involved with the Toastmasters organization. And my primary reason for joining Toastmasters may not be the same as everyone else's. I mean, other than that, we all want to do speaking in some way, shape, or form. We all want to be better communicators in that kind of environment, and we all benefit from it. We know it's an important leadership skill. But I joined really because I just wanted to brush up, not because I wasn't already a good speaker. I always felt that I was pretty good. But I undoubtedly have become even better since doing that. And, it's one of those things that the further you get with things, the more you realize how much you just don't know. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I don't even think I'm such a good speaker as I did when I joined, but I know I'm better than I was when I joined, if that makes any sense at all.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it has been a huge help in terms of my own leadership, because it makes me less afraid to have my voice out there and to be talking about things and hopefully even making a difference with it. Because it's helped me to realize and recognize just how much of an impact you can make. And throughout history, we are littered with examples, an embarrassment of riches of people who have changed the world through communication, through getting up onto a platform and speaking from the heart, saying things with a level of eloquence, just really hitting home for people. That's how powerful communication is, and that's why it's such an important part for everybody to understand. But that's why I have a show about it.
Absolutely.
What do you see as being the most critical parts or elements of being a good communicator?
Well, I think you really need to take a holistic approach to your communication. And you have to be very mindful of what you're saying and how you're saying it. So if you're in a motivation part of as a leader, you want to be sure that you're motivating let's say your employees in ways that they're motivated. Like there's a lot of research that shows that employees aren't necessarily motivated with money. Many of the younger employees, and which I'll get to about intergenerational, but younger employees need to be appreciated. They need to be working for a firm that has a commitment to a social goal. So there's other things in the world that you can motivate your employees with instead of just money. And also, Johnny, intergenerationally, how you're going to speak to Generation Z is very different than how you're going to speak to boomers. And thinking that you can write one email or make one speech to a company and reach everybody so that they feel you is dangerous thinking, because they will not all relate to you. So
Right.
being very mindful of who you're speaking with and what their needs are crucial. And the second thing we need to do is we have to, we're still in this virtual world. And I think many employees will be staying virtually working from home,
I think
and
so.
communicating to them is absolutely crucial. I just got off a meeting. I have an early morning Wednesday morning meeting at 6 a.m. leadership meeting with a client. And we were talking about how to onboard employees when they're virtual, like how do you train them, and how to get them part of a company culture when the culture's not like in one office. And
Mm.
so it boils right down to communication. Not only do you have to communicate, but you have to communicate twice as often, and you have to communicate in ways that they can really appreciate that you're there for them. And all through the pandemic, I have really pushed my CEOs to get on the phone and actually call employees every week and say, how are you doing? Something they would never ever do if they were in the office. But doing that, so communicating that you care, and that you, even though you're in the office setting, in the home setting, we do care about you. And the
Yeah.
same thing goes for having employees talk with each other. I really am firmly committed to having coffee dates with your colleagues, where you just grab a cup of coffee for 15-20 minutes on a Zoom call and just shoot it, and talk about things that you would talk about in the office. These small things, these mindful things, again, are crucial to keep that community and culture in a company that is spread out. And I think this is going
Right.
to be the norm. I think we're going to have a lot of hybrid, where some people are in the office, some people are home. So learning how that communication continues is going to be crucial for success.
Yeah. What are the things? I mean, you mentioned about having the culture, and I think that's important. What are the things that people or employers and companies can do to help create that culture, especially if their teams are virtual? You talk about what we can do individually, but what could companies do to encourage that in their employees?
I think the first thing that we need to do is really up our teamwork game and bring teams stronger. And some of the things you can do from a teamwork perspective is to set norms so that everybody knows what is expected of them, keep the meetings shorter, get timed agenda so you know what's going to happen and how, who's responsible for what. I think that's really, really important. The other thing I love that is I think will be effective is having mentorship programs where there's mentors in a company helping others on their team. So it's more of a collaboration than a project management thing. And mentorship goes two ways. I like the idea of a seasoned professional speaking to the younger employee, but the younger employee brings so much value in terms of the latest technology, the latest thinking. So that reverse mentoring is a crucial idea, and that makes the younger person feel much more valued as well. So all those things to help people both communicate, get projects done, and feel valued. And,
Yeah.
I also believe in Friday happy hours, not necessarily with alcohol, but, once a month, everybody needs to jump on a Zoom call. And there's some great games that can be played, contests, trivia, just everybody let their hair down and enjoy that. And some people roll their eyes at it, but there's so many people who enjoy it and need it. So that kind of keeping the culture and kind of light and together. And also, I suggest doing charity events online if you're spread out, having some kind of a
Yeah.
charity that everybody can get behind, and then do activities with that. There's a lot to bring people together, and then of course doing training so that you can have a company of excellence. So all those things are really helpful in that
I like
virtual
that.
environment.
Yeah. I particularly like that charity idea. I think that's exciting because, like, you're less likely to get those eye rolls with something that's for charity. But why do you think it is? Why? I've probably been guilty of that just as much as anyone else. Like, company events, get everyone coming together. And really, why are we like that?
Well, I think it's our age, Johnny, to tell you the truth, because younger
Well,
people,
I can remember being like this when I was much younger as well. So I'm not going to put it down to
maybe it's just
not taking
you.
age on
Maybe
this
it's
one.
just you.
It could be that I've always been a bit of an old grump. It's
Yeah,
true.
well, so there it is. But even old grumps can get motivated, and a good leader would motivate someone like you to do that. But you'd be surprised how many employees really enjoy holiday get-togethers, secret friends, St. Patrick's Day. Out here we just had St. Patrick's Day, celebrations, uh, Valentine's Day, all the kind of stuff to bring people together and have some fun. Fourth of July out here. It's all this America
Yeah,
centric,
we
but
don't celebrate
holidays
that,
that bring everybody together,
but yeah.
that bring people together, and or live stream, together, watch a Netflix show or something. There's just like a
Yeah.
movie night, so many creative things. And I would suggest that companies create a fun committee where people come together and figure out what they're going to do for fun every month. And believe it or not, that's going to raise morale, as well as I think get everybody more productive because they feel, again, part of something. And
Mm.
that is the most crucial thing, is feeling part of a company, even if you're not working on site.
Yeah, I like that. I feel I'm a reformed eye roller, if that makes sense. Like, I probably was. Definitely, I was one of those people. Like, I'd have my arms folded, I'd be rolling my eyes and visibly tutting if somebody started mentioning these sorts of activities. And I don't think it was just my personality. I honestly think it's kind of a cultural thing in the UK, in my experience. Not just that British reserve, but that we're not supposed to be emotional. We're not supposed to be having fun. This is a professional environment kind of thing. That you actually have to really get out of your own way to be able to do that. Thankfully, I've now learned to do that. Now I get excited and enthusiastic about these things. So it is possible. You can be one of those old grumps with your arms folded, going everything that's going on, and change and be someone who's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's have fun. And
Let's
I
have
promise,
fun.
life's better on this side of the fence. It really is.
It really is. And it's so interesting. You were talking, when you talk about your arms folded and your eyes rolling. Communication is also body language. And in the good old days when I could speak in front of an audience, I always touched on body language, because body language is 80% of what people watch, which is why Zoom is so weird. But when you walk into a room and you stand up straight and you look someone in the eye and you give them a firm handshake and you avoid eye rolling in any situation. And when you cross your arms, that shows that grumpy things. But even in Zoom meetings, there is a way that you can help bring people in by how your body language in a Zoom meeting too. And we all know that people who are looking down like this while you're in a meeting know that they're on their phones or they're not even engaged. So
Yeah.
all those
So
things are really important. I mean, if I was
yeah.
talking to you like this, Johnny,
If
like
your
the
eyes are
people
pointing
screaming,
downwards, yep.
like what the heck is she doing, But I'm
Yeah.
watching you, I see you, it's so that body language, when you talk about communication, it's really holistic to elevate. You have to think about what you're hearing and listening to, what you're saying, and what you're looking like in terms of getting that whole thing so you can communicate and listen. And from there, you can really do wonderful things.
I really like that. And so I want to get an impression of that. I'll share one thing by you, and you can tell me what you think, because I think this is something that's really important. And one of the things we do lose with the virtual world is eye contact, right? So we don't if we look someone in the eyes when they're on our screen, we're looking at our screen. To them it looks like we're looking at our screen. To us it looks like we're looking in their eyes. That's our natural tendency. As a as a live streamer and a podcast host, I have trained myself to look directly into the camera. And to me, the camera lens is your eyes, which is a bit weird, but I can see you on my screen as well. I have to be in peripheral focus to be able to do that. So I don't see in full focus, but to me, this is how I establish connection, because if you're looking at your screen, you see me essentially looking in your eyes. Yeah.
Exactly. I haven't looked at you once. I mean, I've been looking at the camera because you have to. But again,
You
I
do.
see you in the. My worry is when we get back into the real world, if I'll be, looking up like this instead of looking into your eyes. It is going to be strange getting back. We haven't. Not too many people have touched on really easing back into the world, because back a year ago, I had 5 or 6 spring presentations canceled because they were live, right? I speak in front of audiences. So I had to pivot very quickly to virtual presentations. And that is no picnic, because you don't have an audience. You're basically speaking to yourself for like an hour. And
Sounds
I
all
learned
right
how
to
to
me.
do that. What?
It sounds okay to me. I do that anyway.
It's so funny, but you're speaking and there's no one, you don't have any audience. And I really feed off my audiences. And so there's no audience feedback. I make jokes. I just laugh to myself. And you also have to amp it up as a communicator. You have to really amp it up to make it interesting and to hold an audience for 45 minutes, because the Q&A is very difficult. And so what I had been doing is 45 minutes of a presentation, then Q&A for 15 or whatever, for an hour presentation.
Good
But
way to do
getting
it.
back into the real world, first of all, I'll have to wear like a full outfit, A, and B, learn how to wear heels again, and C, be able to really connect with people. And I'm very excited about that. It's my natural tendency. But I'll be real honest with you. My first couple of presentations are going to be very odd, because you're just not used to it. Those pivots, those transitions are just hard. But I really am excited about doing that.
I'm dreading
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I'm dreading having to put high heels on again, but I'll figure it out. We'll figure it
You're probably
out.
wearing them now, and then you have to take them off.
I don't know. That would be fun. Maybe a bit painful. I do all my presentations standing up, so it's a long time to be on your feet, as they say. But yeah, I find it interesting because for me, this whole thing wasn't really a big pivot. I was already doing this. I was already doing online coaching, have been for years. I was already doing webinars. I was already doing presentations online and trainings. So most of the work that I've been doing over the last 10 years has already been online. Then, of course, there's the podcasting and the streaming. Or to be honest, the streaming has been more of a recent thing, probably in the last 5 or 6 months that I've been doing more live streaming. And you can see how well that's going.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun to be live. And
It is a lot of fun.
I like it.
Still ironing some of the kinks out, of course, but it is a lot of fun going live on the calls, and it's a bit of a different atmosphere. Still trying to figure out how to get things properly set up for audience interaction, and that's really one of the things that I want. One of the benefits potentially of live streaming, but in terms of being able to communicate, is if you listen to podcasts, you can't really interact with them. But if you come to a live stream of the podcast as it's being recorded, then you can. And I think that's a lot of fun. That's something that I thought, oh yeah, I want to have that potential in my show, because I think that's going to give some real value to people. And so this is why I've done it. So it's not just me trying to ask questions necessarily always on, or give insights on behalf of my audience. My audience can actually come and be a part of it and check in with the show. And if anyone's watching or listening and thinking, oh, I'd like to be part of your live streams, get in touch with me. I'll tell you how to join us in the live studio, in the virtual studio for each show. You'll be very welcome to do that and participate in the audience. We'd love to see you. So yes, things like that still getting a bit set up with, but the whole thing in terms of a communication level, I think it's really exciting. It's a very exciting format. It is, to me, the next best thing to being able to be live. In fact,
Absolutely.
some companies now are doing such a good job of virtual events. And I think of one I was with recently, Hoover. I think it's Hoover or Hover, WHOVA. Such a good job of doing virtual live events, as just at the Podfest event they do recently, that in some ways it was better, better than the real thing. You can be at home, you don't have to travel. Yeah, there's a time zone thing for me, but ultimately I've probably got onto more of it and had all the recordings and could be more interactive, and you can type in to the chat boxes and stuff as things are going on. I love it. From a communication perspective, I think we've advanced to things that were already coming anyway and have been forced to move faster.
Exactly, accelerate. And I have all of a sudden, I'm now speaking to a global audience, which I wasn't before, and that's been super fun. I've done a lot of podcasts for the UK, and I've met some great people. I'm starting some business opportunities there. It's wild, which would never have happened before. So there's always a silver lining when things are tough. There's always something. If the people who can pivot to the positive, which is my whole theme of my life, if you can pivot to the positive and figure out what will work as opposed to what's not working, then that just can really change your life.
Yeah. I want to come back to that in just a moment, but you mentioned to me before that you are on Clubhouse, and Clubhouse is very much a voice only kind of interaction. Surely that's more challenging. You said how important the body language stuff is, and that's reduced on video. It's non-existent on Clubhouse. So how do we be better communicators when the only thing we have going on is our voice?
That's such a great question. I love Clubhouse because it's only audio. And the thing that I've noticed, first of all, is we all have to be better listeners. And it really helps you become an active listener, because all you have is audio. And number two, you could really be looking like anything. You could be in your pajamas, which I'm quite a bit, and being on Clubhouse. So, but when I communicate on Clubhouse, I am sure I am very mindful of what I say, how I say it, and the fact that I'm very succinct at what I do. I co-host a show every Monday at 7 a.m, The Power of the Pivot. And it's just, you really being succinct and giving value. So it makes you have to be a little more mindful. It's kind of like doing push-ups for your communication skills, because it's different, and it's challenging, but it's very rewarding.
It's fascinating to me. Like when I very first started doing professional coaching work, um, before before everyone was really on Skype and had online capabilities, there were some people I could use Skype and stuff with, but most people it would be on the phone, so we'd have to make phone calls. Remember those days? Goodness me! So, but a lot of it wouldn't be face to face unless people could, unless it was like a travelable distance. So I was already fairly remote with the work that I do, but I love as much as anyone else the ability to be wherever I need to be with an internet connection and be able to do pretty much everything that I want to do professionally. And that to me has been so liberating, and not just for me, I know. Um, but I do also see that because I started doing all this very early on, I really had to get into understanding the differences between audio only communication, especially in one-to-one coaching sessions, that you have to listen very carefully. And just as much as when you're reading, you sometimes have to look for context on what's not being said or what the reasons why something is there, you have to do that in listening, and that is a real skill. And one that I think anyone can develop if they have a mind to do it. I think you have to do that in Clubhouse as well. Like the whole auditory only perspective, I think it does push you to be more present. Well, hopefully, it does push you to be more present. And if you find it doesn't, I would encourage you to work on that and get in. You mentioned active listening earlier. Really listen to what's being said and speak. Speak in context so that you're not just waiting for your turn to say what you really want to say, but you're actually listening so that you can respond appropriately to what's going on in the room. Because I certainly see, here I should say, because you don't see it, but hear that going on a lot in Clubhouse rooms that I've been in. People don't
Yes.
necessarily take full scope of what is being said or what's really going on in the room. They just have in mind what they want to say and what they want to put out there. And I know Clubhouse is not the only place to do that, but that is a common thing that goes on in social media, that people will put stuff in that's just what they're thinking and is out of context to what's actually being discussed at the time.
And Johnny, you'll see that in team meetings. Like, people aren't listening to each other and they just want to say something. And there's nothing, I was talking to somebody else the other day, there's nothing worse than you talk about something and someone not only does not acknowledge what you just said, but totally changes the subject because they probably weren't listening to what you just said. And that is so dysfunctional and disrespectful. So to listen and then to respond appropriately, acknowledge what you heard, and validate it. It's crucial. And Johnny, we're talking about personal and professional. This is really crucial with your family at home too. I don't think we listen enough to our kids and to our significant others as well as we should. I don't think we're really good active listeners. And our kids know when they're not really being heard, even when they're little. If you've got your phone in your hand, you're listening to your kid, they know that you're not all there for them. Same thing with your significant other. So I think we can really, really up our game personally. One of the things I always, one of the activities I ask my audiences to do is to go home, usually, or some people are already home, but ask your spouse how their day was and sit down and have them speak to you and listen and look at them right like this without a phone for 10 minutes, as opposed to saying, how was your day? And then you're like busy making dinner or showing the kids or whatever. You wouldn't believe how that enhances a relationship, because the significant other is actually feeling that you're hearing them and that you care about that. Just that 10 minutes, they'll first of all wonder what's going on. They'll be suspicious. But once they get beyond the suspicion of what you're listening for, it's remarkable how we don't listen like we should. And then that signals disrespect, no interest. So a lot of the things that relationships have trouble with is that people don't feel like they're being heard, but we're not demonstrating that we're heard. And maybe you can say, well, I heard you. But if you're not feeling like you've been heard, it's a whole thing. So you can put that into work home world, and you can also put that in the work world. Same thing with business colleagues, same thing with customers. So all that, it all adds up.
This is very relatable content. I only have to think back to last night, and I'm like, oh yeah, I think we kind of do that. And so when I go home tonight, then we should sit down on the sofa and look into each other's eyes. Is that
Yes.
yeah?
And you
And
say, how
then
was your day? I'm very interested in how your day was today. Come sit
yeah,
and tell me for a couple of minutes.
right. Rather than it
And
just being a throwaway line, actually
right.
tell me. I like
I'm
that.
very,
I
and
like
anyone
that.
say, I'm very interested in how your day went today. That makes people feel so good, and your kids too. I mean, I remember when my kids were growing up at the table, we would always have dinner every night that we could. And we'd say, what was the best part of your day and what sucked during your day? And we'd go around the table and we'd listen and comment, and the kids felt heard. And there were no electronics back then, but if the phone rang, no one could answer it, type of thing. You remember the home phone. But these small things you can do in your personal life to really help people you love feel listened to goes a long way in strengthening relationships and building trust and showing your people who you love that they are valued.
It's interesting. I was talking to, I can't remember if it was an actual live show. I get so confused now with what's actually gone out on a live show and what's been my pre-show conversation with people, but because there's so many of them. But I was
And you're
talking
so
to some,
busy.
yeah, it's crazy. It's good, it's good, but it is crazy. And so yeah, I was talking to somebody and they were saying about things like it, about talking about communication at home and like things preferred methods of communication, and that if you really want to communicate well with your kids, that maybe the one of the best ways to do that is to make sure that you know what their preferred methods of communication are, and utilize them, and to have them do yours as well. But we've heard of things like love languages and stuff like that, but how do we really implement that in our own relationship? You talk about, well, we sit down on the sofa, we have a nice chat. Some of the best times I've had with my significant other have been when we that chat leads into a deeper conversation, or we end up discussing something and getting a taste of our opinions or thoughts on it, and it feels like a really nice connection. But I also know that there are times when I feel like I need to send him a WhatsApp message to get his attention.
Exactly. But truly, I take a 5-mile walk every morning with my husband, and we have that time and we talk. I mean, we talk about issues, about society issues, what's new in the news, and family stuff. And when you're walking, you really are just the two of you, and it's early in the morning, and you really have that connection. And I just think it's so important, and especially with your kids, even if they don't want to talk to you, they're not used to talking to you. They need to learn how to talk to you, and they need to learn how to interact and how to have, eye contact, and
Mm,
how to be body language. You need to teach your kids these stuff. They're not going to learn it in front of a computer, but these things also make them feel good when they want to tell you about your day. When they want to tell you about your day, Johnny, and you put down your phone, you sit down and you say, "Tell me about your day." That makes a kid feel fantastic. Also, an employee, it makes an employee feel, when an employee walks into your office and you stop what you're doing, you swing away from the computer and you say, "Tell me what's going on." They want to sit down, let's talk. That sort of interaction is so crucial to make people really feel valued. To
mm.
not, there's nothing worse than you walk into someone's office and they keep typing on their computer and you try to, I mean, there's so many examples. And if we're just
Mm.
mindful of this, we can, as I say, elevate our game and elevate our business, elevate our customer service. If we start listening to our customers more, it's all about communication.
So, as someone who doesn't have kids, I wonder on behalf of those who do, and I know you do, so you can share this. But if you don't feel that you have that level of communication with your kids, and you sort of maybe you feel like you need to kind of break the ice to be able to have that, where would you start? What would be
At the
some of the
dinner
best
table.
ways to do it? Just at the
Dinner
dinner
table,
table.
or take the kids out to or take a walk, or go to the park, or do some kind of, just mindfully make some time to go do something together, spend some time, even if they don't want to, take them to a zoo or an outdoor space, take them for a hike. Even if they don't want to, it's good for them to get out, and it's good for them to have the opportunity to talk. And just offering them that opportunity is crucial, and showing them that you care, even if they don't want to say much, but knowing that you're there and you'll listen is very, very crucial. And I say again, the same thing with a spouse or a parent. If you're caring for older parents, they need to be heard too. We all need to be heard.
Yeah, my parents tune into the show, so I'll be careful what I say.
I'll tell how
Absolutely.
to your mom and dad.
No, we have a good relationship, and I actually really enjoy talking to my parents now. And when I was a kid, I couldn't really have imagined that being the case. But I've always loved my parents, but we have a really cool relationship now,
That's
and I love,
awesome.
I love going out for dinner and drinks with them, and sometimes we'll just go and grab a coffee somewhere, and it's really nice, and we can just hang out and chat about all sorts of things under the sun. That's lovely. The connection is lovely, but it hasn't always been perfect. Every relationship has ups and downs, but now it's really good. I'm very pleased with that relationship. But every relationship, even if it's good, can always be a bit better with a bit of attention and with a bit more presence in the relationship.
Presence, that's the key, Johnny. Presence, and watering that relationship, just watering it and nurturing it. And because it can't be neglected, because it's neglected, that's when things fall apart. And and it's hard because we're also busy, and we've got COVID going on and all sorts of wild things going on. And it's difficult to stay focused on a relationship. But at the end of the day, it's the most important things we have.
I want to come back now to the pivot to the positive, and really find out from you where that came from and what it means to you.
Well, I am a cancer survivor, and I realized that there's when I found out that I had it, I decided to I stopped my teaching career, retired from my faculty position, a tenured faculty position, and I wanted to start this business of professional speaking, because I realized that negativity never moves us forward. So I used to bring positivity into my classroom all the time. In addition to teaching content, I would give motivational talks to my students. And I could see what a difference it made in their confidence, in their productivity, and the fact that if they could find the positive in anything, no matter what the challenges, and there's so many challenges when you're going to college and you're graduating and trying to find a career, but if you could stay positive and look at the opportunities and not necessarily, the downsides of things, you really can live a more joyful life. And so I've had a lot of loss in my life, and I've had a lot of challenges in my life, but I've always found that I'm happier and I can move forward when I stay positive. And no matter what happens in your life, there's a way you can be positive. And so even when you wake up in the morning, you have a choice. You have a choice to either, I'm going to have a miserable day today, or I'm going to have a great day today. And people who are cancer survivors, or who have survived trauma, and they feel they're lucky just to wake up in the morning, you'll find that that's just the win altogether, and the rest is just, icing on the cake. So when you bring this into a corporate setting, when you help employees pivot to the positive, when you tell leaders you can't walk into a meeting negative, you can't be cranky, because your people are modeling themselves after you. So every time that you pivot to the positive, you move forward in your world and you open up opportunities. So that's how that really become kind of a mantra for me, that no matter what happens, let's figure out how to pivot to the positive.
Yeah, I like that. This was going through my head when you were saying that as well. I was thinking about it. I think I was kind of a morbidly obsessed teenager. A morbidly obsessed, not morbidly obese. Hopefully, I was. I don't think I was that. But I was kind of obsessed with death. Maybe that's a common thing for teenagers.
It is common.
Yeah. But I was convinced as a teenager that I probably wasn't going to live past 28. I can't tell you why I was convinced of that. I was kind of thinking, yeah, probably only going to live to 28. And I just had that number set in my head. So weirdly enough, when I got, I think I got over that into my 20s anyway. But certainly when I got past 28, I realized that I was now older than I ever thought I was going to live to as a teenager. And even past that, even at that sort of around 30 sort of age, I started to recognize, every day was a gift, and every day was a bonus to where I thought I was going to get to. And that only, I think that only increases hopefully as you get older, if you're paying attention. That every day is a bonus. But it is important to be able to reframe things in your life, as either it's all a tragedy, or it's all fun and joy. There are good and bad things in life, but your general demeanor, your general baseline level is going to determine what you pick. So if your baseline is kind of depressed and everything bad, then whatever happens, that's what you're going to paint it with. That's the lens that you see it through. Whereas if your baseline is okay, for the most part, life is really good, you don't have to pretend things are positive when they're not. But I do think you're at least a lot more likely to maybe asking yourself, where's the opportunity here in this, or what is there here to be positive or happy about? It's not painting on a smile when you don't feel happy. It's not trying to fake your emotions. It's just reframing yourself and saying, you know what, actually there is still stuff to appreciate here. You have a much better chance, so I think, of finding opportunities, being more successful, and good things happening, because your expectations to the greatest degree are going to be creating that for you.
Absolutely. And it really does help with resilience. Now, if you're depressed all the time, that's where the therapists come in. I always say, therapy is really crucial. Therapy and medications are really helpful if you're depressed and clinically depressed. But when you don't, when you dealt with that and you realize how you're going to move forward, it's crucial to have that resilience. And I don't think we're teaching this generation as much as we were taught, that resilience, that, it's okay that bad things can happen to you. This is how you cope with them, and this is how you move forward. And I
Yeah.
think that's an important thing we need to teach, because bad things do happen to all of us. And, I was listening to someone on Clubhouse this morning, which was a fascinating thing. And he was saying that he was really bullied as a child. And this is one of those like $10.1 million guys in one of those huge rooms. And he said he was bullied as a child, but he said that it's important to move through that bullying and to learn from it, because there's so many bullies in the business world that you have to deal with. And how do you deal with a bully as an adult? And it was very profound, because I was bullied as a kid too, and learning how to cope with it then. And then when you get into the bullying now in my adulthood, I have no problems with bullies. I know exactly how to deal with them. But if you don't allow kids to understand that or teach them that, then they're in trouble. So that whole thing about not protecting your kids, but helping them move through these challenges and moving through hard times and moving through grief, and then continuing forward, that's the gift that you really want to give somebody.
It is interesting. I mean, I suffered bullying as well at school, and I do have a bit of a story which we don't really have time for, but about me standing up to my bully at school, and never got bullied again afterwards, and not just by people who knew about that, but because it changed my attitude, and it changed my approach as well. And no, to some degree, bullies in those environments are going to pick on, as they always do, whoever they feel are the weakest or easiest targets, the people who are least likely to fight back, the people who seem perhaps the most placid or timid. They are the easier targets to go for than somebody who's likely to get up in their face again. So yeah, it's an interesting thing, but it's funny what you can take away from that is, like, at the time, that's a really horrible situation. But even with a horrible situation, there are some really positive lessons you can take away from it, just by reframing it, or saying, you know what, actually that prepared me, that set me up for the things that we get to come. It's one of the reasons why I love that Stoic philosophy has made a resurgence into the general consciousness. A lot of that's down to people like Tim Ferriss, for sure, who have put some of the books out there. he put out a series of books, I think from Seneca, and I've also had been fortunate enough to have chats with people like Donald Robertson, who's a real expert on this, and followed a lot of Ryan Holiday's stuff as well, and find that that's a really powerful philosophy for mental resilience and for being able to not just withstand the things that life throws at you, but to be able to withstand them and go through them with some grace and with some perspective as to that you still have choices here. There are still things you have control over, and take yourself out of the victim mentality of the world happening to you and put yourself into, okay, well, if there's nothing you can do about it, you just have to let it pass, because it will. It's temporary, like everything else. But if there is something you can do about it, do that and see if it makes a difference. Because the only thing you really can influence is your own thoughts and your own reactions to things. So how you respond, that's going to be down to you. And so it's up to you whether it's going to be a positive response or a negative one.
Amen. That's exactly it. That's exactly what I coach too. And it's people who can get that can really find joy. People who understand what they can control and what they can't, let going of guilt, let going of perfectionism, and just living their lives for them, the way they want to live it, not worrying about what other people think. All those things together, and in a positive frame, I think that's a good ticket to finding joy every day.
I think so too. I've really been enjoying this conversation, Lori. And one of the things that I like to ask my guests for is a book recommendation. It doesn't have to be nonfiction. It can just be a book that you really enjoyed. But if one of your friends came to you and said, "Hey, Lori, what's a good book that I should read and check out?" What would you recommend?
Can I do two?
Absolutely.
Okay. Fiction-wise, I just finished reading, and I don't have the author in front of me, but it's called Cooking for Picasso. And it's a wonderful fiction book about this woman in the 1930s who cooked for the artist Picasso. And it talks about, it's a romantic novel, but it's also kind of historical and it's artsy, and it's just a very fun read. And there's kind of a mystery in there. So it's called Cooking for Picasso. I absolutely loved it.
I like
And
the sound of it.
my favorite leadership book is called The Leadership Challenge. And it's by Barry Posner and James Kouzes, Kouzes. And it's an old book. It was in the early 2000s, but I think they have a new edition now. But it's all about how to be a leader. And there's 5 different characteristics of a leader, which you can read about. But my favorite characteristic is called modeling the way. So as a leader, you want to model leadership for others. And when you start thinking about how you want to model leadership, you become a better leader. So it's a wonderful book. It's fascinating. It's easy to get into. I read it in my doctoral program. And I think if you want to do a leadership journey yourself, this is a wonderful place to start. It's really one of my favorite books.
Fantastic. So you mentioned that you're on Clubhouse. We talked about that. If someone's wanting to connect with you on Clubhouse, how are they going to connect with you there?
My handle is my name. I think you could just search my name, Lori Baker-Schena, Schena. But also I'm Dr. BS, Doctor BS. That's also my Twitter handle. And I got that because when I was teaching in school, I was Professor BS because Baker-Schena. And then when I got my doctorate, my students started calling me Dr. BS. And it just really stuck with me because it's funny. I'm very funny, and I don't take any BS. So the thing that was so great about this, though, Johnny, is that I used to go on planes, when I flew around the country, and people would meet you and how do I get to you? I said, just look me up at Dr. BS. And people remember that. And then my clients would call me Dr. BS. I mean, and the employees and all the people I coach, Dr. BS, and just was kind of words of endearment. So that's how you find me, Dr. BS, Doctor BS. And I made that from my Clubhouse handle.
What other than Clubhouse are the best ways to get in contact with you?
The absolute best way to get in touch with me is my website, which is www.loribakerschena.com.
Excellent stuff.
Drop me a line.
Yeah. When this goes out as the podcast, all that will be in the show notes, and of course, I will update the YouTube video afterwards with all the intro and outro, all the stuff I was trying to get to work at the start that I couldn't get figured out. That will all be in there when it goes out as a rebroadcast. But for now, any final words for anyone as we close things off today?
I just urge everyone to pivot to the positive whenever you can and really be mindful of the way you're communicating and work hard to be an active listener. I think you're really going to be able to elevate your personal life and your professional life. And thank you so much, Johnny, for having me here. I had an amazing time.
It's been a real pleasure. I hope you'll come back again in the future.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, and just seeing if